Do you think UFOs, the paranormal, weird history, cryptozoology, and outsider art are pretty darn cool? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to High Strangeness with your host, Steve Berg.
The video version. Oh my goodness. Thank you everyone for coming back to another episode of High Strange. Coming back to it? They're not really coming back to it, are they, Dean?
No, everything's always been high and it's always been...
Exactly. Folks, thank you for coming. I'm saying it again. Thank you for listening or tuning. I don't even know how to say this. This opening is a disaster. Thank you for listening to another episode of High Strangeness. Today, back on the show to try attempt number 2 is Dean Alioto. Dean, how are you, friend?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Dude, well, first off, thank you so much for giving me a second chance. So, folks, embarrassingly enough, Dean and I recorded about 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe even longer ago, and I totally messed up the audio. My audio sounded like a weird robot, and I don't know what happened. Ghost in the Machines, demons, I'm not sure what it was. Something 14 and High Strange was playing its part. But Dean, how are you, my friend? How is sunny Southern California?
It's good. We're actually back to the sun. There was a period there because of the fires where we didn't like the sun.
Right.
And the rains came and everything, but now we're back. And so things seem to be all stabilized here. And
good.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of the fires, I'm just curious, like, how is everyone doing? Like, what's the vibe? I know I talked to my friends, and it's a different take from everybody, but, like, how are you feeling with everything? Are people recouping? Are we getting back to some semblance of normalcy here?
Yeah, slowly rebuilding. I mean, there's the devastation is still there because people are still having to deal with insurance companies and everything else and rebooting their lives. But the worst of it is definitely over. So, it's... shit happens. I always judge, like I was in the San Francisco earthquake.
Were you really? Was that like in 90, what was that, mid-90s?
I think it was in 87.
Oh, okay, shit. During the World Series, right?
There was the one in LA, which was in Northridge.
That's what I'm thinking of. You're right.
After. Yeah. And this one was, it was insane. And so you judge any catastrophe by the reaction of the people.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember a perfect example of that was we were all waiting outside this like 7-Eleven convenience store. I think it was a local convenience store, not a 7-Eleven.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is San Francisco. And we're all waiting there. And this kid runs up to the head of the line. And this guy, older gentleman, grabs this kid and is going to start pummeling the crap out of him. And that's not the way to go. It was just his frustration. And I stepped in and someone else stepped in. And it turned out that this young guy was racing to get to the door so he could open it. He worked there.
Oh, God.
And so you had some people helping and other people like just going aggro. And then we had our neighbor who we never really spoke with. I think one time he banged on the wall because I was playing movies because I'm always watching movies. And it was adjacent to this other property. And he rolled his window down and said, hey, man, can you play that any louder? I'm sure I said something like, oh, yeah, I'm like not even halfway. And then I turned it down. And then when the earthquake hit, it was kind of like, hey, man, we got some hot dogs and we got this and that. Do you guys want to, how are you fixed for food?
Right.
And so that was really great and showed that people can come together. Judge people by the helpers. I think that
is a beautiful rule of thumb. I think it's like when the chips are down and your back's against the wall, it's like, who are the people who are going to not just be self-serving but are going to help the people around them in their community?
Yeah,
we want those people. We need more of those.
Exactly. And then we took the hot dogs that he had and we sold them for like I think $50 a pop. Actually, a win-win, I think.
Right. And that's how Dean made his first million.
The hot dog earthquakes.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, just like any good American corporate company, you prey upon people when a disaster happens.
Absolutely. That's the moment you pray for.
Exactly.
So
Well, Dean, I didn't have you on to we talk about natural disasters. I had you on because I had recently seen your new film, The Alien Perspective. Oh my God, I can't talk. The Alien Perspective. And let me tell you, I loved it. I think it is a fantastic film. But before we jump into that, before I even met you or knew you, I didn't realize I was a fan of your work because I have been a fan of the McPherson Tapes for a long time. To me, the McPherson Tapes is one of those few films that comes around every once in a while and totally breaks a genre and creates something new. And you're like the dude behind that. You're the dude behind the found footage movie. Can we please talk a little bit about the McPherson Tapes, please?
No, see, that was in my past, and I'm all about nouveau.
Yeah. You're so French New Wave, Dean.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because, again, you mentioned that, this was something kind of from your past. Well, I thought it was buried for the longest time. I had made this film out of film school. It turns out to have ended up being the first found footage film.
Yes.
And 10 years before Blair Witch. And all I knew is that I had to make this film before I turned 25 because that's what all my film idols had done, Spielberg, Scorsese, etc. And I had read Communion, and it knocked me on my ass. I thought, this is more terrifying than any Stephen King novel I've read. And I thought, if I were to shoot an abduction, how would I do it so I could feel that visceral fear? And that's when I hit on the idea, because I was shooting wedding videos with a buddy of mine, of using a home video camera, and shooting the family cabin in the woods as they see a UFO, and one by one they get abducted, all real time, shot from one of the family members' new home video camera. And so it was just this, thing that was part gimmick and part needing to express myself, but really needing to capture what that experience would be like. And so that was the goal. And at the time when I went to try to sell it, it did not go over well at all. I had some woman yell at me to get out of her office. She said, "Don't ever come back until you have a real film." And so it was really just the worst of the worst. And so I thought, well, that's it. And then it actually got distributed, and thought, wow, okay, well, maybe this will find an audience. And then, the distribution company burned to the ground, literally, and I lost my main man. And thought, well, that's the film god saying, yeah, kid, keep it going, keep moving on.
Right.
And then 5 years later, I get a call from some guy who had just come back from the International UFO Congress Convention, who said, "Hey, your film was shown there. It's believed to be real. Do you know who's got the rights to this footage?" And, that's when I, told him, yes, it is my film. It's not real. We made it.
So people at the UFO Congress, like the scuttlebutt going around after people saw it was like, this is real.
Lieutenant Colonel Don Ware, 40 years Air Force intelligence, claimed it was authentic.
Wow.
Yeah. So
highest compliment, if you ask me.
Yeah, or it's not a good sign of the Air Force intelligence.
True, very true.
One or the other, but he, it didn't have any credits. Someone had edited off the credits and inject them to the UFO community somehow. And so anyway, I went on national TV and debunked my movie.
Debunked your own film.
Yeah, and it was weird because I didn't intend to have people think, this is real. It was just, I wanted to see what an abduction would look like.
Right.
Firsthand, I wanted to see it go down and what it would look like for someone who was the victim, if you will. So anyway, that's how that all went out. And then years later, I think it was 2000, well, another 5 years later, the internet came and a whole bunch of conspiracies came out. So I had to start showing pictures behind the scenes and going, stop, put down the stupid stick. This is not real. I'm telling you, trust me. And then for the anniversary of it, I ended up going back to the International UFO Congress Convention and showed it there, and also at Fantastic Fest and Seaches and some other great festivals, and it just took on a life of its own. I mean, I had done a remake for UPN. It was their first TV movie called Alien Abduction: Incident in Lake County, which came out a year before Blair Witch, and that had its own kind of following. So it's just been this kind of gift that keeps on giving for me as a filmmaker. In fact, I just got back from Horror Hound, which if you have fans of the horror that listen to you, that's where Terrifier, the Terrifier movie,
Oh, wow.
was launched. And so it was funny because a lot of the people came up to me and they wanted to talk about the McPherson tape. And so, I was there talking about my new film, The Last Podcast. But
by the way, can I brag for you? I did see that your film swept the awards. So congratulations. You don't want to brag yourself, but folks, your film crushed it at this festival.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
We did, well, my favorite award was getting the audience award, because that's the one where you know that you're connecting with them, and so we were really and
that's the big want of a filmmaker, right?
yeah no, I'm still kind of in shock that we got all the awards and just so I mean, we literally got back, I think, yesterday.
Oh man, so cool. Well deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. So anyway, the so the McPherson tape has kind of become a life of its own, and I kind of feel like I'm almost disconnected because it was such a long time ago, that it's this really kind of sweet, like it's an elementary school buddy who shows up that you were thick as thieves, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember. Hey dude, how's it going? That's how it kind of feels sometimes.
Right.
But I mean, anyway, so that was my first foray into UFOs.
I have one just technical question for you. Like, I rewatched it recently, and it still is just I love it. It really is like startling to me. Like there's a very good fly on the wall vibe about this movie, where I'd be like, ooh, I'm in this room while this is happening. I probably shouldn't be there. But my question to you is, I really could not notice a single edit in the movie. Like, was there an edit in the movie, or is it honestly one take?
So we shot it originally all in one night.
Good God.
Got home and then looked at it and saw that it was too dark during a section of it. And so we went back and had to do a pickup shot for that stuff. So
that's it?
Yeah. And so the bridge of the two shots are when the guys run back to the cabin or to the house.
Right.
And I slam into the door. That was unintentional. And that's why you'll see the focal length change. So it goes from outside being very wide, and then when we smash inside, I literally hit the camera, and there's like a moment of static. That's roll camera static, because the lens got compressed, and so it ended up going so that it was like this longer lens. So we go in there, it gets a little jacked up, but it's buried, within the cut that we had. But
oh my God. You hit it very well, because I was, I'm just always studying film production. Whether I like it or not, I'm always doing it. But I could not find the fucking edit in the thing. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But that you only did one pickup shot for it? That is incredible. Like, did you rehearse this like a play?
Yeah, we rehearsed it for about a week. It was based on a 10-page beat sheet that I had. And so because I play the youngest son, the youngest brother out of the three, who just got his new video camera, won't put it down. He's like 16 years old. I could control that. So it was like, I knew when it was time to progress to the next scene, etc. There'd be certain key things that I would say. I also had a headset on. So I would be at some point turning away from the camera. And, cue the spaceship, cue the aliens. While we're
you're conducting, directing, holding the camera. I mean, playing. That is like, that stresses me out to even think about.
I have control issues.
Yeah. Well, they came in handy.
Yeah, it was just easier, and all the actors were terrific, because they're the ones that are, having to improvise for, the whole length of the feature.
That's right. And like, as a person who did improv for like 1,000 improv shows in like a decade, like improvising on camera is so different. And it is really tricky to stay in the moment for long periods of time like that. I mean, like, the performances are great. Like, it's like truly unbelievable. But they feel so real and so natural. Like,
well, it's funny because now it is appreciated because the found footage genre has been around for a while, and there's certain, if you will, tropes that, so, and some of them are not, that's kind of sounds negative. They're more of things that are earmarks of an actual event happening. Like, I remember showing the film to the casting director, and she saw it, and she was unable to hide her opinion. And she said, "This is just amateur." She goes, "You can't hear people talking. They're talking over each other. You have these long takes. People, have their backs to the camera sometimes. I don't know what to say. This is really not great. And I'm sorry, I have nothing positive to say." That was the first person who I showed it to. So for a long time, that was representative of what I had in my brain with the film, even though we showed the film at a screening in LA, or excuse me, in San Francisco, Bay Area, where we shot it. And Jacques Vallée was there and everything, and he dug it because he's from San Francisco like me.
Right.
And the thing was, I just thought, well, everyone's being nice because it's really a piece of shit, according to this woman who's, in the business. And so it wasn't until years later that was, appreciated. All those things that I wanted to keep raw and authentic were all of a sudden appreciated. And it was no longer just this, it was like, it was trying to be a home video. It's not trying to be a movie. That was the whole point.
Well, you were so ahead of the curve that I feel like this lady, or probably other people, didn't know how to watch this movie, because it had not been done before. So they're seeing something like you almost can't help, blame the lady. It's like, I've never seen it. I don't know what to do with this. This is not traditional. Like, there's not like blocked off shots. There's no actors blocking. They're not hitting marks. They're not like, and talking over each other. Well, that's what people do in real life. So, my hat's off. I love the film. I find it incredibly effective. And in terms of alien abduction movies, I think it's the best.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. It's funny, while I was shooting, I kept going, wow, we have these really cool aliens and this awesome spaceship. God, if I could just do a dolly shot. I had to go cut. It's not about that. This is the real event.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And even at this, like I said, at this festival, people kept coming up and wanting to talk about that. And it always has a soft spot, in my film, because it was my first outing. So
yeah, it should. Well, without me even thinking, this film will have a life for a long time, and I think that's just, I don't know. As a filmmaker, I gotta think that feels pretty good.
It does, because I've done films in between that time, and documentaries, TV documentaries and stuff, and then to find out that you actually were able to achieve something that has merit.
Yeah.
After the fact. I think I was 16 or 17 years old when it was like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. That was it. I was shooting stuff, little, karate, Chuck Norris, Super 8 movies before that. But I think that was really, that was great to know that I kind of did succeed, with what I wanted to. It just, took a few decades literally to ripen. So,
it's not uncommon in the film world. When David Lynch first released Eraserhead, people were like, what in the hell did I just watch? Because no one had seen a movie like that. And they didn't know how to watch a David Lynch movie yet. The language wasn't available to people. So I think this is, it's probably, if we sat there and really thought about it, I think it's probably more common than people think, where movies come out, people aren't ready for them yet, and then 20 years later, it's a masterpiece.
I just finished reading the behind the scenes making of 2001: Space Odyssey.
Oh, wow.
And that movie was eviscerated. New York Times, the New Yorker, everyone eviscerated it. Pauline Kael, everyone derided and taken it to task and said the best compliment that they got was it's somewhere between art and boring. And so literally Stanley Kubrick was like telling his wife, I don't know what to do. I have no clue of what works, what doesn't anymore. I thought we did something special, and was really shitting on himself. And then that it got released, and everyone's expecting, MGM, who released it included, are expecting this is just going to be a write-off. And,
right.
And MGM wasn't doing that well at the time. They've had many moments where they weren't doing well. This is one of them. And all of a sudden, it's reported there's lines around the block. and it's young people, because this is the mid to late 60s, and they fucking loved it, man.
Yeah.
Just tore it up. And all of a sudden, these critics, literally some of the critics went back and watched it again and reevaluated it, realized we missed something, which hats off to those guys. But it ended up becoming the most successful movie of the year.
Good God.
So you never know, dude. You never know. The final say is the audience. And sometimes they're not even the final say. Sometimes the final say is years later.
It's history. Yeah.
History, and it's how it holds up and everything. And that's the true test. And so
I agree.
You don't always have one, shot at it. Sometimes you get that second life.
I agree. I think it's beautiful. I kind of think that's like the most interesting trajectory. Really, it is like where, I'm not positive this, but I'm pretty sure when you were making this movie, like, wow, I didn't think in 2025 people would still be talking to me about it. Like, that's as an artist of any kind, that is like maybe not the goal you have in mind, but like it's a real want for every artist. I promise you, is to have their work appreciated, long after they make it. So yeah, I think it's awesome. But Dean, I want to get into, okay, hold on, folks. I'm noticing something here. My friend Dean has a coffee mug with John Oates.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it seems like you've chosen a side in the Daryl Hall John Oates dispute.
I got water. I'm rocking water with Mr. Oates, and then I'm doing my coffee with Josh. So the John Oates, and on the other side says, I love John Oates.
Who doesn't?
A buddy of mine, Broden Minogue, out of Australia, he and his buddy, they have a podcast. He's interested in UFOs, stuff like that. He's also funny as shit. Mm-hmm. And he has this series that he does that is just goofy as hell. And one of the things that we bonded on was, for some reason, I don't know why, but it was Hall & Oates. And so when I was in Australia last year and saw him, he gave me this. Oh. And so it's kind of like our running joke that John Oates is, he's the shit and he's the man.
The unsung hero.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes we'll do lines back and forth in our emails and everything of Oates. If we can, Hall & Oates, if we can work that in, it just becomes this weird scene. So that's what's
it's funny because I was having this conversation with a friend who was like getting pretty down about politics and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, maybe just turn on some Hall & Oates. Like while you're cooking or something like that. And he's like, and then like an hour later he texts me, he's like, dude, that actually worked. I'm like, yeah. They are a mood lifter. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. I mean, right now my brain is getting shotgun in the face with all the lines. If you feel like leaving, you can go.
Don't you start with me right now, Dave. This will devolve into a Hall & Oates karaoke session.
Yeah. All the listeners, God damn it.
Yeah, they're so good. It's like one of those bands where I'm like, really, you don't like Hall & Oates? Like, don't.
You're a liar.
Yeah, there's nothing hip about like not liking Daryl Hall and John Oates. I mean,
it's yacht music at its finest.
I love yacht rock. I really do. I'm guilty as charged. Dean, I want to talk about the alien perspective because I really enjoyed this film, and I am picky about as anyone is, I'm sure, about UFO documentaries because I think they're really hard to do. I really do. I would not know about how to go about doing this. One thing, right when I saw the title, I was immediately intrigued because your take is like, what? No one's really done this. Again, you're kind of doing things for the first time where you're making a film based on the alien perspective. So, like, what made you decide to approach the project like this?
It was just complete happenstance. I mean, I had, for the anniversary of the film, I went to the UFO Congress and started meeting fantastic people that were at Harvard, that were at Oxford, all different places, Montana Tech, and they had all these theories that they were kicking around, and some of them it was just as a hypothesis, right? Well, that's what a theory is, and they were interesting and fascinating. And I saw something that I felt hadn't been really seen, exploited in this space, in the UFO space, to give it some legitimacy. And so, because I had done, documentaries for A&E, Bravo, stuff like that, I knew the format, and I thought, well, let's do something that maybe would be like a premium doc, and do this, and maybe not make it just for the UFO community, though absolutely I wanted to show them stuff they hadn't seen before, and service them. But also, equally important was to pull in people that were bi UFO curious, get them in. And so I just met all these people, and finally I said, okay, but I don't want to do something that's been derivative, because there's already been a lot of great documentaries, from James Fox on. And so I felt like I really want to figure out what all these docs have done and then try to do the opposite. And I realized the one commonality was that they all were told from the human's perspective. Yeah. What if, as a hypothetical, we were for the first time ever, look at this from the alien's perspective, literally. And because of that, I was able to get Professor Michio Kaku, and a whole bunch of other people that normally never work in this space. I know that Michio, I think, was in Terror in the Sky or something, Corey's thing that came out about a year ago. Well, we had done his interview in 2018. And the reason why it took so long is, again, you think, I'm just going to shoot this thing in 9 months, 15 interviews, I'm done. No problem.
Yeah, I hear you.
It doesn't work that way, as you know. And so I start out at NASA, and I'm interviewing the deputy in charge of the TESS program, which is a satellite that has been sent out that is finding intelligent life. And then it goes from there to, I ask them, I say on camera, I'm like, what is the protocol when you do see a civilization? You do find that needle in a haystack, and you see a light grid and everything, a city, civilization. What happens then? And she got the giggles, and she says, we don't have a plan. And I said, wait, hold on. Are you shitting me? You're NASA. You don't have a plan, and you've got all this technology, millions, tens of millions. And she started laughing. She goes, no, we don't. She says, the only people that actually do have a protocol is SETI. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I go over to SETI. I'm like, all right, guys, what is this protocol? And then that leads to something, and then something else. Well, you talk to this person, you need to go and talk to this person. And so, because we're looking at, especially the first movie, which is all about where these beings may be coming from, I decided that, we're going to go full on and look into what that could be. And the spectrum just kept getting bigger and bigger, to the point that I'm interviewing Dr. Nick Bostrom, who created the simulated reality hypothesis that we're all living in a simulation. And so got him to talk about it, and other theories and stuff that no one's heard about before.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing this because I'm stupid, but the extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial.
Thank you. You rehearsed that. But I thought that, the Michael Master stuff I thought was really interesting too. Like, and I had heard him speak once about kind of his theory, but not much. He's not like out there that much. What an interesting theory as well,
Well, in 2019, I was shooting Travis Walton and some others, and for the documentary, and I kept seeing Mike Masters with his table there, and this is before Mike had done any PR work at all. And I finally walked by him and I go, all right, dude, what are you hawking? Well, I believe they're from the future. And I'd kind of heard that before.
Right.
No details about it. Just went, oh, okay, as a concept.
Yeah.
And then I looked at his book and I went, oh, that's kind of interesting. I said, hey, you want to come in for an interview? And he goes, sure. So I came in and we interviewed him, and it was really, really fruitful. I mean, I was asking him things that he hadn't been asked before, but more importantly, he had kind of touched on them in his research. And so we were able to get into things, as an example, that were like, when it comes to, say, hybrids, the hybrid program, where people, abductees claiming to have been abducted and are having offsprings, hybrid with these beings.
Right.
I said, how come no one ever talks about reptilian hybrids or the other types of beings, the mantis,
Sure.
mantis hybrids.
That would look crazy, man.
So that kind of underscored his thesis that, so the gray ones would make sense that, we would be able to do that. And he, and so it was great because he was educating me, because he's an anthropological biologist. He looks at where mankind came from and where we are now and how we evolved. And then he projected it out and saw that we're going to look like a lot like these gray beings.
Right. Well, I mean, like, you obviously, and I am doing my best to not give away any spoilers because people really need to watch this. But, you obviously had the opportunity to speak with some hardcore scientists, and I'm kind of curious, like, were you able to kind of get a sense of what they thought in terms of, like, the reality of UFOs visiting Earth, whatever they may be, like, and I guess if you did get a sense whether they thought there was something genuine about them, or aliens visiting, did you get a sense, like, what the theories that they thought perhaps, hold the most water? Not that anyone knows, but, like...
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I learned, because the documentary ended up becoming a 2 parts. The second one is going to drop June 1st. In fact, Contact in the Desert, we're going to be having our world premiere of episode, it's not episode, it's part 2, the sequel to this movie. And the reason why there is a part 1 and part 2 is that the first one is a completely different vibe. Yeah. And it's got its own thesis of what it's doing. And the second one has something completely different. And so they work better as 2 separate movies. But this thing grew and grew and grew to 66 interviews, 4 countries. And so it ended up becoming 4 documentaries. So there's the Alien Perspective, part 1, that is out now on Amazon and Apple.
Yep.
And part 2, that'll come out in June. Then I have another documentary that is all about the experiencers. And that may come out towards the end of the year. And I've got some real major mic drops there. I have one with Travis Walton that no one has heard before.
Superb.
I worked on crime shows for like 20 years. So for me, interviewing people, I'm always looking to go back and reverse engineer certain things and try to ask questions from that, again, that perspective. And so, and then the 4th documentary is going to be about John Mack.
Great.
Yeah. So I'm, for better or worse, it's taken 7 years of my life, and I'm just finishing up all of it. But the first one is, this one is, has a whole bunch of things in it that I had not seen before. And again, I'm servicing 2 masters. I'm servicing, the tried and true, sometimes jaded ufologists, that audience who've seen it all. But I can tell you, like, we do Rendlesham Forest, and the stuff that James Penniston says he hasn't said before, and a good chunk of that is like what I do. Like when on crime shows, I kind of do this thing where I suggest that they go back and they look at everything that's happening at that moment. So I'm like, take me to the moment. It's the day after Christmas, the night after you're in this forest. You see this thing. Describe everything. I want to know what you feel, what you smell.
Yeah.
What your inner monologue is on this. And all of a sudden, James Penniston like goes into like a fugue state and says, I'm seeing, and he's getting emotional. I go, hey, what's going on, Jim? And he says, I'm there. And I go, okay, good. Let's talk about that. And he said, no. I'm there right now. Like, there's no other memory in my life that is as visceral, as crystal clear as this. He says, I can see the bark, the grooves on the bark of the tree next to me. I see the dew that's on the leaves. I see everything. And he starts, and I go, great, let's slowly unpack that. And that was really helpful because all of these things, after the interviews, I went and I had a world-class animator, Arvid Steen, who did the Oscar-winning film Searching for Sugarman, had him do the animation based on all of these things. So you're seeing things that you've not seen. Ever.
Yeah.
And that happened with the Tic Tac event as well, where we went in and we did that with Kevin Day and some of the others and animated it. But that was really special to have, and I was honored that Jim trusted trusted me
Yeah.
to take him there.
Something that just kind of popped in my head, and like I've known about Rendlesham for a while, but like I can't remember, and it's been like when Penniston had he walked up to the craft and touched it and it had an effect on him. But did they ever see the craft? Like, what happened after that? Did they see the craft like eventually like fly away, or did they just kind of like eventually like back off and leave it alone and it disappeared? Like,
no,
do you remember?
Yeah, it's in the documentary. It might be because we've got a part 2 of Rendlesham.
Right. Okay.
When we get into it, so you'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I love it. You're right. I'm impatient. Well, if you want to give me an early cut, I wouldn't hate it. But you are obviously, as we've talked about, you're a narrative filmmaker as well. You do both formats. But as a dude who's myself interested in the documentary world, like how does production financing and planning differ in the two formats? This is like such a personal question because I'm just so curious.
It's none of your goddamn business, Steve. That's all.
Make it happen, dude.
Yeah, that's what that's about.
Yeah.
No, I raised some money.
Yeah.
To do the documentaries, by a buddy of mine, and he just basically wanted to see this because he knows, you invest in this business. It's, it's you never know what you're going to get, but he had seen the stuff that I'd done beforehand and knew that I was going to handle it, hopefully in a responsible way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a lot of financing of the film myself as well, and so you pulling people together. Occasionally, someone will come in and chip in and everything, but because of the level of quality that we were doing, it had to happen. We're flying all around to get these interviews and stuff,
right?
But a lot of it was people coming in. Like Arvid gave us a great deal on his animation. Right. I mean, the animation alone could have been, like 500,000.
And it is beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. And so it was, people, it's always a combination, even when you're doing an independent, narrative film, of people chipping in, raising money, etc. And so the thing is, you're it's like the Blues Brothers, man. We're on a mission from God.
Yeah.
You do whatever it takes to get it done because, first and foremost, you want to see it. And so it's like I have this opinion on this phenomenon. And as this went on, the one thing that was really interesting was I had all these ideas of what the phenomenon is.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I learned that was more tangible than anything else I learned was I learned what I didn't know.
Aha.
Which was a lot, even though I don't say armchair expert, maybe armchair, before I started this, I was an armchair prosumer.
Right.
But you learn that, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. What about this? Well, that doesn't make sense. And then you start to find things that do. And I think at the end of the day, I think there's a good chance it's all of the above. I think it's what Jacques Vallée said. It's dimensional. We're definitely going to create time travel. That's going to happen. Einstein predicted it. I don't believe that when we create it, we can only go back to the moment that we created this time machine. I don't believe that at all. Right. Because time is relative. It's, like a spiral, and we're going to be able to puncture that and navigate through all of that. But see, the thing is, we're still animals.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of shit to work out before we get to the place that we're using technology like that without, abusing it. But we will do that. And so what would we do? We would go back in time. And we might tell our younger selves, hey, you're creating kind of a shitty environment for us in the future. Might want to kind of chill on that and come up with something else, So, because that's definitely the messaging that they seem to be saying. So anyway, but
yeah. That's interesting. So and obviously I'm not surprised by this, but like shooting the film, editing the film, getting it all together, after it's all said and done, it had an effect on your perception or how you think about the UFO phenomenon. Yeah.
I saw it kind of linear at first. And then I had to it's like I was invited to go to Yvonne Smith's Ciro's abductee experiences support group.
Mhm.
And I was actually allowed to film there, which I don't know if that had ever happened before. And because I, built trust and came there, and it really blew me away, because I'm talking to these people and I'm asking them, if you could wave a magic wand and never have been abducted, never have had that experience, because it can be extremely terrifying, would you guys do it? And I said, show me your hands, raise your hands if you would still do it. Everyone without hesitation raised their hand that they would have it happen again, because ultimately they're looking at the long play here, man. They're a part of something that's going on, something that's amazing, maybe magical, but some program that I think is to help them as well as us.
That is really interesting. I'm actually surprised by that. I would have thought it would be more like 50-50, where people are like, nah, the trauma wasn't worth it, but
yeah, well, I will tell you that there was the only person that did throw down was there was a lieutenant. No, he was a major in the Army, 35-year-old guy, big guy, like 6'5", and he was there. It was the first time he was there, and he was pretty pissed off. And I'm guessing you go through stages, like the 7 stages of 5 stages of grief,
right?
And he said, I'm here because I've had these experiences my whole life, and it's me, and it was relegated to me, and I just roll with it. My wife knows about it, and only a couple other people. However, 3 months ago, my 2 daughters, I guess they were like 5 and 7, rolled up to him in the morning and showed him a picture. And he looked at the picture and said, what is this? And it was a picture of these thin, like stick drawings. Kids draw stick drawings all the time, except their heads were shaped in a strange way. And he said, hey, sweeties, what is this that you drew? What is this? And one of them said, oh, these are the little skeleton people that come to visit us at night sometimes. Mm. So they didn't know, they hadn't heard anything about, their father's experience. And he went into a rage and was like, I put up with this shit. They're not coming to get my fucking kids. He was furious. And he goes, I kind of think you guys are crazy that you're okay with this. And I almost had to be calmed down. Again, this is a big guy. And so he was kind of, new to this. And Yvonne was, expertly navigating him through this to say, let's talk about this and why maybe you're a part of this whole thing, and get some perspective on your kids. I have a daughter, and I can't imagine that I wouldn't feel the exact same way.
Yeah, very intrusive. My God, it's a nightmare. Like, did you? I don't know this. It is one of these things, like with the abduction phenomenon. It was, kind of reached that fever pitch in the 90s, at least that's the way I remember it. And then it feels like, at least in the mainstream ufology, it has sort of died down. But I'm imagining people now contact you because of your films and even the McPherson tapes, and probably tell you their stories. But as far as you know, do you hear about the abduction phenomenon still occurring?
Yeah, it's still going on. Some people believe that that program, that they perfected it and it's not happening anymore. But I still, keep in contact with Yvonne, and she says that it's still going on. Maybe it's not going on as much, but it's still going on. And the most important thing is that what has happened is that these people, how it's shaped them. And to me, I'm interested in that, how they're shaped as adults. Right. I will tease that in my Experiencers documentary, we have 2 sisters in their 20s who it looks like something may have happened, and we discover it real time. And so if they're in their 20s, that's not too long ago.
No,
that this stuff is going on. But here's what I'm predicting. everyone has had their, with regards to Grush and everyone in the congressional hearings, we've been talking about this. And I kind of joke that I think we're at a zenith now where the only thing left is for them to bring out the tailpipe of a UFO or dead alien hand and drop it on the table at the hearings. Barring that, the people who, you want disclosure, well, disclosure's already happened for these experiencers.
Yeah.
So it's really, this is why I believe it's really time for the experiencers to have their seat at the table.
Bravo.
It's gone on long enough that these guys are being kept kind of at arm's distance and going, as a part of the hearings and stuff where it's like, we're going to talk about, crashed craft, recovered craft, reverse engineering, but we're not talking about the elephant in the room.
Right.
Like we don't want to jump the shark, if you will. And that to me is, I get the idea of that. I get where that's coming from, but no, that's over. It's already been accepted. The government has programs. It's accepted. We are being visited by UFOs. And so let's ask the stupid simple question, which is, why are they coming here?
Right.
And, that's what I get into with part 2 of the alien perspective. But why are they coming here? Well, they're not just doing drive-bys, are they? These crafts are too big to just be a drone.
Yeah.
So something is going on. And when we project ourselves out to the era of Star Trek, the prime directive, which always got broken every frickin' episode. But it's, we would do that. We would definitely tag, tranquilize the bears, tag them, take samples and stuff. So it just seems like that's what's going on. But it's their time. It's their time. Mm-hmm. We've got to make room for them at the table.
I really agree because, I guess for a non-science person, look, I'm just a song and dance man here, so I'm never going to understand or the talk of propulsion of these crafts and stuff like that. I get it. That's something that's probably important for scientists to look into and stuff. But for me, I feel like I glean the most interesting, or I learn how to ask better questions when I hear experiencers talk. Yeah. And so I wholeheartedly, my hat's off to you, because I do think hearing the experiences and how it actually affects them and maybe even changes their worldview or their life, that is so important. I actually think that's where we might get ahead the most. I'm not I guess I might be jaded in the fact of the disclosure stuff where I don't think anything's gonna really come of it, to be honest. But I would love to be wrong for sure. But talking to experiencers and hearing what happened to them, how it affected them, and how it changed them, to me is vastly important. And I cannot wait to see your efforts in that. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it blew my mind. There was one moment where I was filming The Sisters with my buddy Charlie, and we looked over at each other and we're like, holy F. I mean, this is insane. And so for me, I feel like seeing footage is great of UFOs. We still haven't seen any of the clear footage that the government has, and they have amazing footage. And don't tell me that they're not going to show it because they're afraid that people can look at it and reverse engineer it. You guys have had it for how long, and you still can't reverse engineer this thing? And supposedly you have recovered craft? Please. Right. Yeah. So just, show us the, show us the goods so we can, see that. That would be nice. But then you're just looking at footage and you're going, okay, well, there it is. And other people have seen it. My mother's seen a UFO. I've not had any experiences. And so that's that kind of is played out in a way, I feel. And so they're never going to put on display at the Smithsonian a recovered craft. Not going to happen.
No.
And I don't want it to happen if we have it, because I want to make sure that, the enemies, if you will, or allies, which is really confusing.
it's very confusing what side we're on now.
Yeah. That they don't get it, but I suspect that if this has happened, then, if these things have crashed before, which again is very suspect that the mothership can't get to them before we have our elite team that can swoop in and get them. So, people say, well, these are offerings. And I go, oh, okay. Well, the way you do an offering is you park the vehicle and you put the keys under the visor and you walk away and you go back up to the mothership and there it is. Why do they need to smash it and then some of them die?
Yeah.
So, when you hear these stories about, well, there's propulsion, the magnetic force and this and that, and throw off their gyroscopic whatever. And, whether that's true or not, I'm not saying that all of it's bullshit. I'm just going, I'm going, okay, regardless of that, that's the hardware. But let's ask the $1 million question. What are these things?
Yeah.
Why are they coming here? Where are they coming from?
Right. And also, I feel like there's kind of with UFOs, there's this idea of American exceptionalism where they're like, well, they only crash in America. I mean, if they have crashed in America, I would put money down that they have crashed in every continent, and other people have them too,
Brazil,
if that is a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's some stories of this, happening all over. So it's just, how do we, what is the deal that we have if we have, all of it? But, I don't know that I've seen technology. I've not seen anything that's like, because these crafts, you look at the behavior of them. And by the way, there's a million different theories on that.
Yeah.
You look at the craft, and I happen to believe that the crafts are not moving really fast at all.
Right.
I think they've got a cruise speed that they operate at. And I think what they do is they skip time. If you look at the beings that were at the aerial school, their movements were described as being, they're here, and then they're here, and then they're here. That's skipping time. And so if
missing frames.
Yes, because they are relocating, bilocating, relocating in sections of time. And so if you can do that, then you see a craft moving along, and then all of a sudden it's like gone. It's skipping time. It's not moving at a speed that would squash and turn, anything inside, into spam in a can.
Right. And even just going back historically since 1947, so many of the reports are like, we're looking up at the sky, all of a sudden there's a UFO, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It's rarely like, well, we watched this thing glide into the atmosphere, come down, hang out, and do a 180 U-turn and fly off. Like that has happened, but it's not really the majority of the reports that I've read, at least.
No, and my mother and my stepfather in the 70s, they saw, it was near dusk, and this is like Half Moon Bay, and they saw this light coming from a distance coming along, and it was above the water, and they thought, oh, it's a boat.
Right.
And they've got a headlight that's going, and it's really kind of obnoxious. It's coming. Then it got maybe 100 yards away from the shore, and they could see this metallic craft around it. And it was emanating this light. And they looked at it, and it was like, there's no sound. And she saw this thing, and then she said it just took off, like it smeared the sky.
Whoa.
So, my stepfather is a real smart ass, so he ran after it saying, take me, take me. In fact, I just saw a meme today, which it's been circulated around, but it was these two aliens looking at this human running up to them. And he said, remember when they used to be afraid of us? It was so much better.
Yeah. Now they're just begging for a ride out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Earth is a dicey planet these days, baby. Well,
nothing to see here, guys.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Yeah, move along. You don't want to stop here. It is interesting. Maybe not in a great way. But, you've kind of touched upon this. But, what would you, in 2025, how would you like to see the study of UFOs change? And do you, I guess the second part of the question would be, do you think this is a mystery that can be solved or will be solved?
The government is not controlling this mystery. A fraction of it they control. They, whoever are visiting us, are controlling it. And I should really do I might at some point do a lecture on disclosure, the whole idea of it, and what that would actually be. When I spoke at Shag Harbor, I talked to the audience. At the end, you get a chance to talk to the speakers, and you do a Q&A one-on-one for a couple hours. And I asked them, about disclosure and what they wanted, and from it. and everyone said, we want alien technology. And so I said, okay, well, how do we ensure that technology doesn't get perverted and weaponized? How do we do that? Well, there's no way, because it's like anti-gravity. That would be dope, man.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm down.
But we're definitely going to be taking people and regimes that we don't like on this planet and floating them off the planet. That's just going to happen, right?
Right.
So that doesn't really work. So there's no safeguards there. With regards to cleaning the environment and having technology that could clean that, yeah. See, here's the problem. We shouldn't have the parents come in and clean the room, because then they're going to have to come back and clean it. We've learned nothing.
Yeah.
And so stop asking for that. We can actually do that ourselves if we, got our stuff together. It's interesting because China, they don't spend money on building really an effective or competitive war chest or their own, like Pentagon. They take the money and they put it into high-speed railways and other areas. And so the thing is, if we could work our shit out, the stuff that we could be doing, we could have jetpacks. We could be doing all these things. We could be going to Mars, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we're still battling with, greed, and where does greed come from? And is it insecurity, ego, whatever?
Right.
It's kind of like, that's a whole other rabbit hole, but
sure.
Staying back on the point here, it's, any kind of technology like that, we have to earn it in a way. And so when people say, they want to be able to get to where we're going to go and get there, faster, I'm like, by seeing a UFO, seeing an alien, you're getting a teaser of a really fantastic movie that we're going to watch eventually. And so these are all trailers that we've had so far, but I don't want to skip ahead to the third act. It's like, I've got this Lego set that my girlfriend Allie got. She works at Universal, and she works in the franchise and merchandise. And so I've got this Jaws Lego set. And I haven't done a Lego set since I was a kid. And I'm going, oh man, I can't wait to dive into that. It's going to be frustrating because you'll be putting pieces together and won't work and everything. But at the end of it, I'm going to have this thing that I created and I solved.
Yeah.
Well, if these beings come along and say, here are all the solves to everything, that takes out the whole process of the growth and the evolution that happens when you learn that, when we discover technology. There's a reason why we discover technology at a certain pace as well.
Yeah.
We're barely mature enough not to blow ourselves to smithereens.
Barely. Just barely.
Yeah. So please don't throw in any new, invisible, technology or whatever that's going to really, that we could really go to town on each other with.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of being patient. And it's like, when do we get to that place where we can, as they call the Galactic Federation, where we are a part of it. But, as Sagan said, we're not even a type 1 species. We can't control our sun. We can't terraform a planet. It kind of makes me a little sad when I hear people, put all their money, well, we're got to find another planet in the Goldilocks, zone. And I'm like, okay, let me talk to you about that. Scientists are saying, astronomers, et cetera, they're talking about other planets, astrophysicists, et cetera. They're talking about them sustaining life kind of similar to ours. But the thing is, we go to another planet, there are a few things that have to be perfect in order for us to survive. One of them is oxygen. The other is gravity. If it's too light or too heavy, that's going to fuck us up.
Yeah.
And then the distance between the sun, the temperatures and everything, that has to be just right. And the days, we can't have a day that goes on for, a week. We do have that certain times of the years, and like near Alaska and North Pole and everything. We do have versions of that, but to have that be sustainable for agriculture, everything else, this is like the ultimate home that we have. I mean, it's really, really gorgeous. And so I kind of feel like, let's not run away from our problems, man. We have to deal with those. I'm sorry, I'm sounding negative, but
no, I'm with you though. This makes a lot of sense to me. Like what you're saying, it's like like before we feel like we're ready to ship off and like go terraform a new planet and all stuff. It's like maybe we have some maturing to do, and like there's a very drunken frat boy vibe on Earth right now. It's like maybe we need to curtail that and get serious about some things like the environment and like a lot of things you mentioned. So I'm with you, pal. It's like we don't feel ready to be a spacefaring species yet. To me,
no. If you make it really reductive and say humanity is like you have people in a boat. All of the oars are not going in the same direction, man.
Oh, God, no, not even close.
We're going like this, regardless of what side politically you are.
Sure.
We're not all rowing in the same direction.
No.
So, and maybe, as Pasulka says in my part 2, maybe it's that we have to develop more of a hive mentality before we get to that place or realize that, if we help someone, we're helping ourselves. And if we hurt someone, we're hurting ourselves.
Right.
And how do we get there?
Right. Well, yeah, there's the whole concept, philosophers and, political science people write about this idea, especially with America. It was this popular thing of like the idea of like individualism. But individualism is not usually great for a society because it sends people into all different directions. And it's a little bit of a less communal philosophy, which I feel like now more than ever, I'm noticing young people are becoming very communal, and they're saying, "Hey, man, the world's this country, this world's messed up. We got to start our own thing." And I think that's great because I feel like that's more the direction that might benefit humanity, where we're, only as strong as our weakest link. I feel like a philosophy like that might get us towards the area where we need to be in before we start going to other planets.
Yeah, I mean, we just look at the history. We love to colonize.
Yeah.
We really love to do that. But the thing also is that we are still animals. We still have the instincts that we needed to survive, hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. That doesn't, get bred out of us, overnight. And the thing is, as technology continues on this planet and we continue to automate everything, with AI and everything else, what are these, what is the public going to do for work?
Right.
Not everyone can be, an influencer or, singer.
Have an OnlyFans. Yeah.
Yeah. Or OnlyFans. So we're going to have some growing pains big time with that. I mean, the next, 10 years is really going to be, telling, is there going to be a universal salary? We have so many things to conquer still.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what I do is I have my, my head in the stars, in the clouds, but I also have my feet on the ground, and I'm trying to, make those two meet at some point. And again, there's tons of people on the planet who are evolved and are good. I mean, I think humans, for the most part, are really, really good and do care, but there's enough of the people who don't.
Yep.
To make it feel like we're stunted.
Right. I agree. I don't have, I'm with you. I feel like most people are inherently good on this planet, but like my big problem is with the control systems, because I don't feel like they're always operating in the best interest of the populace.
Yeah.
I'm really skirting around a lot of specific points, but we all know what I'm talking about, folks. Dean, I just have a couple more questions for you, and you've been so generous with your time once again. But I'm very curious about this. Do you kind of get down with any other manifestations of the strange and unusual, like cryptids, ghosts, or like psychic stuff, and any kind of other form of high strangeness?
Who and what I get down with is none of your business.
I'm asking the Barbara Walters questions here, pal.
Yeah, I'm gonna start crying in a second. I have interest in those. I certainly believe that we exist outside of our bodies. I believe in a soul. I believe in reincarnation. xenoglossy is a term for children that are able to speak other languages
Right.
than the one that they were born into. That to me is fascinating, and so that, out of body experiences, remote viewing, all those things, I've always had interest in those. Have I had experiences? I've had weird dreams before.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I mean, I've had sleep paralysis before, but nothing that's associated that I'm aware of with any
Right.
kind of a abduction type thing. I was just probably really tired. So I know that right now I'm really excited because I'm going to Contact in the Desert. I'll be there on a panel showing again part 2 and part 1. Dr. Diane Powell is going to be there with the telepathy tapes.
Okay, cool.
Which is all about these autistic kids that are showing that they can actually read minds of their parents and their caregivers and each other. And that's really fascinating. So I've been diving into that. But no, I've not had anything that I feel comfortable talking to you, Steve, about.
Right. It's anyone else, obviously. But yeah, you kind of have a general interest in the strange and unusual. It seems like, like you like weird stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very close family member who was having medical issues and was leaving their body every single time this happened, and was able to describe things that they were unconscious for. And
Amazing.
So it was kind of early on. And that was like 20 years ago. So it's just fait complete. It's like, oh, okay, we have a soul. We can exist outside of that. That makes sense. Right. So I am interested in researching more of that. And I might do something with that.
I would like that. I would like that a lot. And Dean, I have one more final question for you, my friend. As a filmmaker, what genre do you think UFOs belong in? You can only choose one. You can only choose one.
Yeah,
I know you want to say musical, but
yeah, I do want to say musical, softcore musical.
Softcore musical, yeah.
I would love to say science, but it depends. I mean, like supposedly they're going to be doing another version of the Barney and Betty Hill story.
Oh, cool.
So that would fall under biography,
right?
Biopic,
right?
So I guess it would be biopic. I mean, we can also always fictionalize stories and stuff. That's a good question. I would, I'd like it to be, something that's a drama. Depending on what the tone is, though, that determines the genre more than anything.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's obviously to put it in UFOs belong in science fiction, but sometimes I'm like, or does it belong in fantasy, or is it a genre blend? Like a few different kinds. It's fun to think about. I do like to take the artist perspective because I do think UFOs and all the paranormal stuff had a massive influence on art going back a long time. So, like this stuff, it's like whether people are into it or not, it affects society, culture, and,
music.
Religions. I mean, my God. So
yeah, music. How many musicians?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you got Robbie Williams, you've got
Bowie,
Post Malone. You've got
John Lennon,
Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
I mean, experiencers. Those guys are, said that they're experiencers, and someone else Smashing Pumpkins, the lead.
Oh, Billy Corgan.
Yeah. He said that he's had experiences.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's influenced them, and it's definitely influenced sciences and some of the people who were instrumental, and I get into it in episode or part 2 with our space program. So, yeah.
Ooh. Buddy, I'm so excited to see part 2 and the John Mack and the documentary about the experiencers, and I'm excited to see the last podcast. Guess what, Dean? I'm a fan of your work, and I'm excited to see all the offerings you have coming down the pike. My brother, will you please tell the listeners where they can find the Alien Perspective Part part one, because part two is not out yet. But in the McPherson tapes, like, just where can we find more of Dean's work?
So you can see the Alien Perspective right now on Amazon or Apple TV. I think Apple TV might have a better player. But you can see it there. And then also the McPherson tape is also out there. I believe that's also on Amazon. And you can follow me. I'm on Instagram at Dean Alioto. I'm also on X/Twitter at my name, Dean Alioto. And then also TikTok. I'm there. In fact, on TikTok, you can see some drone footage that I shot in November off of my Silver Lake deck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was a whole other level of weirdness, but could be prosaic. Who knows? So I'm leaving it kind of open. I'm not calling it anything other than what it is. But that is under my name, and also I think it's my company, Captured Pictures Official.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the ways to hook up.
Great. Well, I will have all those links in the show notes, my friends, as always. But Dean, buddy, and I double thank you for giving me your time again, because I felt so embarrassed and bad about screwing up the first recording. But thank you so much for giving me your time. I feel like you said, take twos are better. This one felt better even.
Yeah, absolutely. No shaming. Things happen for a reason, brother. Things happen for a reason.
I agree. Look, we nailed it. Cut, print, check the gate, moving on, new deal. Buddy, we are tail lights, as they say in the business. We are leaving this location. Dean, thank you so much, my brother. And folks, thanks for listening to another episode of Hi Strangers. Enjoy your dinners tonight. Peace.